Hello, good morning and welcome. It's Tuesday, July the 22nd, the final day of term for MPs, the final day of term for us. My name is Sam Coates of Sky News.
And I'm Anne McElvoy from Politico. Welcome to Politics at Sam and Anne's, the podcast that gives you everything you need to know about the day ahead in British politics in about 20 minutes.
And because we're winding down and about to send you away for the summer holidays, we could just put on a film and leave you to your own devices, but oh no, we're going to press on to the end at the same unstoppable pace. Did you know, Anne, that in an entire year of daily episodes, which we do every day while Parliament is sitting, I've never missed a single one. So I, for one, am very, very excited to be turning off the 5 a.m. alarm for a little bit.
But we're not going away entirely, even if Sam gets to sleep till about 5:30. He's not used to actually being in bed at all. Throughout the summer, we will be dropping weekly episodes of our box set, just under 30 minutes, deep dives into key areas from the future of the NHS and education to can Rachel Reeves find a way through the public finances pressures, and some star experts dropping in as guests. They will drop in your feed every Monday, and we hope great prep for the return. But first, full disclosure, Sam, where is that mouse?
Oh God, don't know, haven't asked, haven't looked. I messaged my other half yesterday and she just said, it's all fine. So I'm not convinced it's been dealt with in the manner that I would prefer. So it may still be here. If you suddenly notice I've disappeared from the Zoom, then that's why. And otherwise, I'm just going to try and not think about it. So let's get on with the day. Where do you want to start, Anne?
All fine sounds a little bit as a political reassurance message. I'm not sure that I completely believe that. So who knows what's going to happen on the mouse front over the summer. Well, we've talked a lot on this podcast about whether there was going to be a government reshuffle, what the size of that would be. I think we concluded on the less likely side of high yesterday. We haven't talked about Team Kemi for a bit, and today a shadow cabinet minister has told my colleague Dan Bloom that the odds of a reshuffle are more than 50%, and now others seem to be coming in behind that, confirming that indeed it could be quite an impactful one. I've got one or two straws in the wind on this. Sam, have you got anything?
Well, in the last few moments, the BBC's Henry Sethman has confirmed that the reshuffle is on. We're also hearing that at Sky. So sound the klaxon. And the big name coming back, it seems, is James Cleverly, leadership contender. He missed out last autumn on the top job. He's been sort of wandering around Parliament, and now he is going to be wandering back into a job in the shadow cabinet to sort of bolster Kemi Badenoch. That will be seen as a sign of the Tory family coming together. It was always a bit weird that he was on the outside. He is a big beast as a former Foreign Secretary and a former Home Secretary. And I think she will be pleased to have shored up her team with his appointment.
Indeed. And also, to say something personal about James Cleverly, he's just very well liked on the Tory benches, and not only on the benches that they've got, if you know what I mean, which is a bit skinny. He was a big star when I was last year with him at a big Tory summer event. He was just the one they all wanted to talk to. So I think having him back, would add to that human dimension of the shadow cabinet. Now, of course, we always look to the victims of these occasions. And this is a line from the playbook. A couple of people are recognised not to have performed. They will step aside elegantly. I bet they won't, but anyway. But they will step aside, and how that will happen and what will they be offered, that seems to be a lively discussion. There is also talk of some role again for Francis Maude. You may remember that he's been in Tory governments from the 2010 coalition onwards. A new role for him. Whatever happens to the Conservative Party, there is always Francis Maude at 72, and still, I think, still keen to be on the pitch. He's been very active in the back channels around Kemi, along with his old staff. So that's still a connection that works. It just raises a lot of interesting questions, doesn't it? Is how does any of this then impact on those very frontline figures? The role of Robert Jenrick. Be interested in what you think about that. Sam, he's been so active recently. What about Alex Burghardt as effectively Kemi's deputy? This is quite a lot of people. Looks like might have different new roles. What does it mean for, if you like, the Kemi vanguard?
Well, I think at this stage in the Parliament, one job matters more than any other, and that's the job of Shadow Chancellor. Now, I want to stress I haven't heard anything about Mel Stride, and all the briefings are that it's not a big reshuffle. But that is the job that defines the leader more than any other. And what we are seeing, Anne, is quite a lot of people covet that job now and in the past. I think it's no secret, and he won't mind me mentioning, that at the start of Kemi Badenoch's premiership, Andrew Griffith, who was a big backer of hers, coveted that role. And, he's got the business brief instead, but continues to comment on things that stray into economic sphere. He does so very rapidly and very helpfully. I wouldn't be surprised if he still wanted that job. And also, there was a story at the weekend that Robert Jenrick's allies were reportedly agitating that he should get the Shadow Chancellor job as well. I have to say, Robert Jenrick ally is a pretty wide category, so you can't always believe everything assigned to that group of people as being a true reflection of what he thinks. But he is the sort of standout performer of the shadow cabinet. He too, of course, went for the leadership and missed out. Maybe the appointment of James Cleverly is a little bit of Robert Jenrick balancing, dare I say it, because there is no doubt that Jenrick's star is high. David Cameron said to think that he could make the next leader of the Conservative Party and may even be an improvement on Kemi Badenoch. That's some of the rumour going around at the moment. So having two candidates who missed out may just help balance the shadow cabinet a little bit. Or maybe I'm too cynical.
No, I think that's a very interesting way of looking at it. When you said he went for the leadership, Robert Jenrick, last time and missed out. I mean, some would say he's still going for the leadership. I think it just still has that relentless feel of a campaign. But for now, they are on board with Kemi Badenoch. It would certainly be a huge change if, as you suggest, there was anything that affected that balance around what Mel Stride's role. He has been trying to raise his own profile recently. I think he would accept, or people close to him at least would accept, that he's maybe needs to connect a bit better, get the Tory case on the economy out there and into the media more. You need a bit more depth and granularity. So that was really, I think, what was going on there. But in the end, they all serve at the pleasure of the leader. And if Kemi Badenoch has decided that she wants changes, well, we will see shortly whether it's at that level or whether there is some way, I can't quite see it, maybe because it's the early hour, in which you can have James Cleverly back in, but all of these other big powers are left to be wholly satisfied where they were. It feels like something quite substantially is going to have to change, isn't it? And also, if you're going to try to pick up that Conservative role on the economy, I think there's still a fundamental question about what is it they're trying to say, other than Yabu sucks, Labour's having a terrible time, Rachel Reeves has boxed herself in. You can run on that for a while, but the summer might be a time when they need to think a bit more clearly about what the Conservative economic message is on where they would take the economy, as well as the travails of poor Rachel.
Well, funnily enough, Anne, we have Robert Jenrick on Growth today in a film that I've done with producer Joe Cook that's rolling out all day on Sky News. And Robert Jenrick sort of plays quite an important role on identifying a growth blocker and what to do about it. Now, we're sort of doing what feels like a year-long series on why Britain isn't growing and what the blockages to it. And today we're returning to a little-known international convention which is slowing building and development. Now, this is a thing called the Aarhus Convention, and it means that campaigners can challenge any big project on environmental grounds and have their costs capped and met by the taxpayer if they lose. And that's just, as lawyers say, an incentive for people to bring cases, even if they really don't have a lot of chance of succeeding. In March, we followed the case of a Norfolk former computer scientist who was seeking to challenge a massive Teesside project on carbon capture and storage. We've had the verdict, Anne, and the verdict was absolutely damning. The judges threw it out and basically said that this guy who brought up a case which is with the cost capped by the taxpayer, that his case was a classic example of the misuse of judicial review in order to continue a campaign against a development where the party had lost the argument on the planning merits. I mean, I don't think you can get a more scathing judgment from the bench. Anyway, we've got Robert Jenrick making the case that in order to get growth, and you've got to make an active choice for growth, you either need to renegotiate our membership of this convention or pull out altogether. And he's really punchy on that And what I was quite struck by is that Robert Jenrick has now got a way into the growth argument. It brings together both his justice shadow portfolio, also some of his housing experience. It's just a different way of articulating an argument about the economy than I've heard before. So quite timely, actually. I think that is that, given all the other debates about how the Tories do growth.
Definitely going to have a look at that and learn a little bit more about the Aarhus Convention myself. But I think it's very on point what you're saying about Robert Jenrick. I just think you're going to see him moving stealthily or not so stealthily into lots of different directions, kind of bottoming out his experience in shadow cabinet. Let's see where that leads. I think you got the real Robert Jenrick, but I should also mention AI, one of your favourite topics, Sam, and the news, it's the AI monitor in the class, and the news that the government has announced OpenAI, the firm behind ChatGPT, has signed a deal to use AI to increase productivity in the UK's public services. And that is a deal signed by the firm and the Department of Science and Technology to give OpenAI access to government data and see its software used across lots of areas: education, defence, security, and the justice system. Now, this is really striking to me because I remember when publishers started to sign these newspaper publishers or media publishers, there was a lot of talk about, is this really wise, to do these memoranda of understandings at such a large scale on open AI, effectively on data and information sharing programs. Now we're seeing government do that, adding the caveat they will develop safeguards to protect the public and uphold democratic values. I think that's sort of obvious that both sides would be signing a clause that says that. It is exciting, but I do think there will be a lot of questions about AI, and particularly the use of open AI when it comes to the amount of data that needs to be hoovered up for the system to learn and keep its machine learning up to date and across so many areas of government. And I'm sure it's going to be impactful. I just predict a bit of more of a debate about it than a signed document.
Oh God, I could completely agree. Let's be honest, Anne, you've set out what the government have announced today, but we don't really know what it's doing with
Not at all.
ChatGPT and OpenAI. There's a lot of words in Peter Carl's press release, but not necessarily a fully spelt out meaning. I am AI curious and AI positive in some senses, but I've done quite a lot of reporting since AI made up an entire episode of this podcast. I've done quite a lot of reporting on AI and public services. The bottom line is, if ministers think that this is a cheap and easy shortcut to save money, then they're in trouble and it's a hiding for nothing. If AI is used to improve and augment things and it's very carefully managed, then it can be absolutely brilliant. But you can't score those savings up front, so be very careful. I heard a great story yesterday about the government use of AI, and if you'll just indulge me, I'll tell this in one moment. I was told about a conversation by somebody senior in number 10, so a top number 10 advisor, and someone in the private sector. And this is all about government consultations. This number 10 advisor, as it was put to me, told the businessman, get this, not to respond to government consultations anymore. So whenever the government launch one and say, let us know, email this address, don't do it. And this is because apparently when there is a consultation these days, the civil service just stick all the responses into AI and ask for a summary and then send that to number 10. And the rather unimpressed person in number 10 said that, all that they get back from consultations these days is basically AI sludge, and gave the impression that without humans filtering the responses, that the whole exercise was rendered pretty meaningless. So they told this business person, rather than respond to consultations, just lobby ministers and senior officials directly. I mean, this hurts my head, Anne. There is so much in this. Consultations being rubbish, AI being rubbish, civil servants being rubbish, number 10 going around slagging off the civil service. This is the very emblem of a broken system and AI making it worse. It hurts my head.
Your poor head. I'm just getting an AI overview on my phone here, listening to you. What is a government? The system by which a state or community is controlled, encompassing the individuals and institutions that make and enforce laws, collect taxes, and provide public services. I'm trying to imagine what that must be like. AI sludge. I can just, as you say, Can make you reach for the Nurofen. Really good. I think we've just got to keep digging on AI as we come back, Sam. So we should maybe do even more research than we normally do for every single podcast over the summer. Come back to it. There is a bit of business around to alert ourselves to. Rachel Reeves is up before a committee, the one with the hardest job in government, perhaps the most talked about cabinet minister of all on this podcast. She must be really relieved to be leaving committees and at least the absolute grind of that job behind for a little break this summer. What are your thoughts on what's going on with Rachel Reeves?
Well, just one little thing, especially the genre, we wouldn't leave our poor listeners going to the summer without just a quick discussion about fiscal rules and headroom, because we know how much you love those on these podcasts. Anyway, and we have a speciality of the genre right now, and it's a yet another way in which it appears that Rachel Reeves is boxing herself in. Right. Let me go through this quickly. Yesterday, ministers announced a review of the state pension age. This is a Dalston Bell speciality. Currently, it's 66. It's due to rise to 67 at some point between 2026 and 2028. This independent review will look at whether the state pension age should be linked to life expectancy to ensure that there is fairness between generations. In other words, go up a bit more. Now, why might you do that? Well, that's because if you push back the pension age, you save money. And if you save money, that can be scored in the accounts as extra headroom. And by the way, Anne, it's like quite a lot. Like for every year you push it back, it's like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 billion. So it's quite a big chunk of your 20 billion pound black hole. However, the Times on page 2 reports very firmly that the government is not expected to end up increasing the state pension age, regardless of the recommendations of this independent report. I love that sentence. We're having an independent report, and we've decided the conclusions. C'est la vie, that's government. One government source told the Times that doing so would be electoral suicide. So that's another avenue closed down, another bit of the box sealed up with sticky tape. Poor old Rachel Reeves.
Yeah, it's a lot of sticky tape around a lot of boxes. Do you feel that perhaps too many people are trying to do her job for her, aren't they? By sort of floating things, which then someone else comes and says, "Oh, if we do that, we'll lose the next election," and that then becomes the story. I'm not saying. I mean, we can welcome this because it's things to talk about on political podcasts and in our reporting. But you can see why there is a big push to try to centralise a bit more of what the government's message is. Something to talk about when we next all meet up. But there is, I think, a really big push to centralise communications. I've heard from a couple of people close to that process and the possible return there of Tim Allen in an overarching role. I mean, personally, I hope they don't centralise it too much because we like talking to people and finding out information from different parts of government and departments. But that's definitely in the air.
What does Craig Oliver and Lee Kane and this government have in common? They all tried to centralise communications, never worked. Just saying.
Oh, okay, you think I'm probably worrying for nothing then? Okay, let's see. It's always better. It's always just better to be worried. I'm the political equivalent of a parent. I mean, just be worried. It's something will happen. I also see that the Telegraph's Tony Diver has got a scoop that Angela Rayner has been pushing for councils to be given new powers to tax tourists, despite Rachel Reeves ruling out any further fiscal devolution. Sam, that does seem to just to be a duo where the I don't want to say the tensions, but should we say different ways of looking at the taxation and where you could find money. And I know that if this is the case, that Angela Rayner is digging deeper and deeper, isn't she, into that brief, into her control there, local government, housing. So she's expanded her staff massively. She's getting a lot more information coming into her, and then she comes up with ideas. And Rachel Reeves says, I'd rather not. Interesting dynamic.
It's often worth looking at the faces in Prime Minister's questions, because when Rachel Reeves ain't looking too happy, and I'm not just talking about that infamous occasion a few weeks ago, but generally, actually, you can see Angela Rayner looking pretty upbeat. Now, the Telegraph story, this is Angela Rayner taking up the case of Metro mayors like Steve Rotherham, who've been pushing this idea of a tax on tourists for up to a year, and Rachel Reeves has been ruling it out for up to a year. So I'm not sure it's a massive, great change, but it's an interesting one to watch. But on the subject of the top of government, and this is a little bit of a handbrake turn, but I've just got two last bits of gossip to end this podcast.
Oh yeah,
I want to get your I want to get your view on. The first is you cannot move if you go to the Commons at the moment for excitable chatter about Tom Watson, the long-time Labour MP, now peer, Lord Watson, versus one of Rachel Reeves' top aides. Right, so the story goes, this aide blamed Watson for the welfare rebellion. Apparently, they thought that Tom Watson was behind what's called the Reason Amendment, one of the amendments that might have killed the welfare bill. And of course, I think lots of people think that is untrue. And it's also not the kind of way that Tom Watson would operate. He's much more in the shadows, should he ever do that. And that is not what I understand he was even going around saying, according to accounts of people that were talking to Tom Watson. So we think the allegation that the aide made was untrue, but it got back to Watson, and he's not a figure to be crossed. Even now, even in Ermine, even in the House of Lords.
Especially not in Ermine.
He's fired a warning shot, and there is a coded dig at this aide in his Sunday Mirror column. Now, I can't really check the fine details of what the aide said and what the aide thinks, so I'm not going to name him in the podcast. Suffice to say, if you go to the Commons Terrace, you'll hear which Reeves aide is in the firing line and in the doo-doo with one of still the most feared people and whistled out people in Westminster, even if I only ever see his sunny side. So there we go. Are you still scared of Tom Watson, Anne?
Not remotely, but I do. Please. I think I've got to that point where one doesn't have to be, but no, I do. Yeah, I'm intrigued. I mean, I don't know it is either. I'm going to spend the rest of the day trying to think about it. But yeah, you're right. You know, some of the old feuds are the best ones, and let's not forget whether it's Tom Watson and those teams. You know, they've been around and they've had their friendships and their feuds for many, many years. So some of this stuff runs pretty deep. You know, it's the underground kind of water flow underneath the Labour Party. So yeah, good bit of gossip to end on. What else do we need to say before we go off? Yeah, go on then.
One other very quick one. Remember last week's suspensions of Labour MPs? I read countless accounts of people saying this was all the Whip's idea. I'm telling you, Anne, I don't think it was their initiative. I'm just going to put that out here. That account, I'm not sure, is right. We had lots and lots of how it was them that came up with this idea. I think it was all dreamt up by some in Number 10. What that tells us going into the summer is it's not entirely a happy ship. Unlike this podcast, which is a massively happy ship. It couldn't happen, even though there's just two of us on the tin, without an enormous number of people. From our side, I'm going to just thank, and you're only going to get first names just in case I've missed somebody out, Paul and Dave and Philly and Katie and Maddie and Jonathan and David and Joe and Tom when he was there. And how about your side, Anne?
And from our side, from Kate and the Playbook team, Dan, Sam, Emilio, Andrew, Tim, Charlie, and many correspondents and reporters at Politico, home and abroad, who have helped support this podcast.
And most of all, Evan, who is the producer of this podcast, for whom we are immensely grateful. He keeps us in shape. He makes us sound good. He lets us know how we can improve. And we are thankful this is his product too. So on that note, Anne, off we go. We will be back for the daily episodes in September. We'll be back in your feeds every week. Thank you very much indeed for your company. Have a lovely time over the summer. I mean, I'll miss the mornings. I really will. I actually adore whatever on earth it is that we do. And I look forward to resuming it, but maybe after a bit of a rest.
A little bit of beach and walking time, and we'll see you very soon.